3. And I'm guessing that's what she was saying.
You can start. I'm not gonna make people wait for me.
You got your phone.
All right, I think it's good.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the zoning commission meeting of July the 2nd. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Pug Lauren. Todd Richard. Bernie Willie. Barry Baggert.
Here.
Patrick Fitzmaurice.
Here.
Dave Doherty.
Here.
Kirk Drum.
Here, young maiden.
Ron Randolph.
Here.
Carolyn Parker. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. On the bar over here, we have
It says on.
speaker cards, and if you disagree with the decision of the commission,
It says they can't hear you, but it says mic on.
oh, did you use that one? We'll switch microphones, maybe you can hear me now. Is that all right? All right, over to my right, there are speaker cards and appeal cards. If you disagree with the decision that the commission makes, you have the right to appeal to the council, and you need to fill out one of these appeal cards. Please silence all phones and electronic devices. Each case, you will have 10 minutes either for and against to discuss the case, and then a 5-minute rebuttal. If we've got a lot of speaker cards here, so I'd suggest if y'all are here on basically one case or two cases, you try and get together with your neighbors and decide who wants to make the presentation. After your case is heard, please exit the building. Don't go out into the lobby area because the sound echoes back into the area. Please rise for the invocation by Mr. Randolph and the pledge by Mr. Willie.
Heavenly Father, once again, we come to you to say thank you for all the blessings you bestowed in our lives. Lord, you watched over and protected us, our families, and our homes in times past, and even through this day, you exhibited your grace, mercy, and favor upon us. Bless us this night. Bless this commission. And Lord, bless those that are in the audience and those that are watching and those that we're representing tonight. Lord, we ask that you continue to bless our parish government and staff. And Lord, be with us all and our families in a mighty way. Bless our military personnel, law enforcement officers, firefighters, emergency personnel. Bless them all and be with them. And all these blessings we ask in your holy name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the next item on the agenda was election of officers, but we did that at last month's meeting, so I'm going to remove that item from the agenda. Next item is approval of the June 4th meeting minutes. Should have been in your packet, and hopefully you've had an opportunity to review it. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice to approve. Commissioner Baggett.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Baggett. Please vote.
The motion to approve has passed.
Thank you. Staff, do we have any postponing of cases? You got Helen's mic on? Helen's mic?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We have a request to postpone item number 6, 2019-1479 ZC.
Okay, that's the only one?
Yes.
Okay. For those of you that don't have an idea of what that particular one is, that is the one that has the rural overlay on it. And we're getting a request. This is item 7. I'm sorry, it is 6. Okay, it is item 6. This one is the one that has the rural overlay on it. And it's my understanding that the petitioner is asking for this to be postponed so that we can possibly have a community meeting so that y'all can have a discussion outside of the commission and make a decision. Do you want to go or do you not want to go with it? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address.
I'm president of the Magnolia Gardens Boat Land Civic Association. We've already had 2 big meetings with the Magnolia Gardens and the Boat Land Civic Association, and we are adamantly opposed to this request for postponement. I would like to ask all of those from the Magnolia Gardens Boat Land Johnson Road area who are here to oppose this to please stand. There will be a major inconvenience for this to be postponed.
Okay.
We've already met twice and we have.
With the petitioner?
No, sir. That's me.
Okay. And the petitioner's asking that we institute a community meeting so that you can find out her position, what she wants to do and everything, and maybe even change your mind.
Right here what she wants to do. She wants to change the zoning from A1 to rural overlay.
It'd still be A1, but it'd have the rural overlay added.
We've met, we know her position.
Okay.
No one, she hasn't approached us
Yes,
at all.
sir. I had a phone call from their homeowners association under the guise.
Come to the microphone and state your name and address, please.
Hi, Lauren Dellinger LaPointe, 134 Rosewood Drive, Metairie, Louisiana, 7005. I had a phone call from a lady that said she was reporting back to the homeowners association and asked for information. I have not been contacted by anyone else. She had my number, she had my email address, she had the ability to contact me with any and all questions. The information that Councilman Fitzgerald has shared with me that the homeowners association has stated is incorrect, and they have made no attempt whatsoever to contact me other than the one call the day the signs went into the lot.
Okay, well, based on the number of people that are here, that basically want to hear the case, if it's all right with you, we go ahead and hear the case. If it comes out in your favor, then they can appeal. If it comes out in their favor, then you can appeal it to the council.
Yes, sir. I also want to point out that there was bad information in the zone staff report that was sent out. They've sent a corrected one this evening, but I think that's very pertinent to the case. It originally said that there was no rural overlay bordering the subdivision, and to the north of my lot and bordering multiple home sites in Magnolia Gardens and Bogue Glen is indeed already existing rural overlay, and there's several houses that are not part of the subdivision but pertain to the Johnson Street properties that are currently in the same overlay and zoning I'm seeking.
Okay. Okay, we'll go ahead and I'm gonna move this particular case up. We'll hear it. And, like I said earlier, if whichever side wins, loses on it, you have the right to appeal to the council,
Yes, sir.
okay? All right. Item 6 on the agenda is 2019-1479-ZC. Existing zoning is A1. The proposed zoning is A1 with the rural overlay. It's 5.5 acres. Lauren Dellinger LaPont is the petitioner. The owner is Lauren Dellinger LaPont. Parcel located on the southeast corner of Dogwood Lane and Johnson Road, Covington, Louisiana, Ward 3, District 2. Staff?
The petitioner is requesting to change the zoning from A1 suburban to A1 suburban with a rural overlay. The site is located on the southeast corner of Dogwood Lane and Johnson Road. The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with residential uses that vary in site design and density. Note that only the following permitted use are allowed with a rural overlay. And it lists here the uses that are permitted or would be permitted under a rural overlay. Staff feels that there is no compelling reason to recommend approval of the request, considering that the site is bordering by Bow Glen subdivision, which maintains existing residential uses that conforms with the A2 residential zoning district. Approval of the requested RO rural overlay would allow for commercial and industrial uses which support agricultural production and do not agree with the adjacent single-family residential environment. Note that only 1 acre of the site is proposed to be developed with a kennel. At this time, staff would like to recommend denial of the request for rural overlay.
Thank you. All right, the petitioner, would you like to come up and make a presentation? And then we'll. I did.
We have to vote to move it up. She gets 10 minutes, right?
Yeah, I said it at 10.
And there's no way you can. This is violated.
Is that gonna be enough for everybody, but feel free to take one.
Go ahead.
My name is Lauren Dellinger LaPointe. I'm currently residing at 134 Rosewood Drive in Metairie, Louisiana. I've been looking forward to tonight for months. I thought this night was going to be the first step towards building our dream home. I feel this project is an asset to St. Tammany and want the neighbors to be happy and welcome us as a neighbor. Just over the weekend, I learned from Councilman Fitzgerald that bad information is being circulated, and I really would like to address those concerns. Before I purchased the lot, we contacted Planning and Zoning. We were told we needed A1 zoning. When we called back with a question about the breeding and client dogs, we then learned that we would need to add the rural overlay. I was encouraged to speak with the councilman and pursue this zoning change request. The lot I own, as well as the house across Dogwood Lane in Magnolia Gardens / Bow Glen, and the lot on the other side of the power lines on Johnson Street that connects with my property, all currently border rural overlay. The staff report mistakenly says that the north border is A1 zoning. That was confirmed incorrect by Helen Lambert in Planning and Zoning on Friday, June 28th. A corrected copy is being distributed tonight. The staff report references that the rural overlay is not in keeping with the neighborhood, but makes no mention that there is already rural overlay along the entire north side of Johnson Street. Nor does it make mention that the 2 adjacent properties to mine already border rural overlay. There is 1 house on the Lee Road end of Johnson Street that has the current rural overlay zoning, and 4 on the other end of Johnson that have this zoning in this overall neighborhood. I would also like to add that my lot, nor the 5 others that are part of the recent subdivision, are inside of the subdivision of Magnolia Gardens or Bow Glen. Many people have expressed their concern about the building and what the kennel will look like. The A1 zoning that currently is on the property allows an accessory building up to 50 foot by 50 foot. The kennel falls under that. This question is not about what we are building, but whether their use. The issue at hand is my partner, Paul Cartez, trains hunting retrievers and breeds a few litters a year. We need the rule overlay to be able to have other people's dogs on our property. This would be no issue if all of the dogs were owned by us. There are currently many home-based businesses in the adjacent subdivision, according to Councilman Fitzgerald. However, this home-based business falls under agricultural and therefore would need the rural overlay. I want to tell you a little bit about the project. We're proposing a single-family residence, approximately 3,500 square feet, along with a pool. We will fence around the entire perimeter of the property and natural landscape buffer 20 foot wide around the perimeter to preserve the natural beauty of the lot. This kennel building will be air conditioned and heated for 12 dogs and will be located towards the Johnson Corner and near the power lines, as far away from the residents of Bow Glen and Magnolia Gardens. We will have additional smaller fenced yards for the dogs, a small pond, and our budget for this project is $1 million. This is not going to be an eyesore to the neighborhood. This project is not a daily drop-off for training facility. It is not a retail location. No dogs will be outside full-time or overnight. There will be no commercial lighting, no large signage outside of the property. Again, I really want to stress this is not about what we are building. This is about allowing us to have client dogs on the property. These dogs typically are 4 to 8 client dogs that come in for training. They stay with us anywhere from 6 months to a year, and we breed just a few litters a year. The rural overlay is needed for the business aspect, not the construction aspect. Rural overlay is a very restrictive zoning, and I feel that many of the residents aren't familiar with what it is about. Using the code from St. Tammany Parish, it was established to permit agricultural uses, to encourage the maintenance of the rural countryside, to preserve forests and other undeveloped lands from population growth, and to allow residents to retain their traditional ways of life. This is what we are looking to do. We are not a puppy bill. As I mentioned, we only breed a few select litters a year. Our dogs and our bitches have full genetic health testing, OFA x-rays on their hips and elbows, and are carefully selected to produce offspring that will better their breed. We breed Nova Scotia duck-tolling retrievers and golden retrievers for showing, hunting, and companionship. You'll find pictures of what these dogs look like in your packet. I know not many people are familiar with tollers. On average, we have a 2-year waiting list to get a puppy from Lakota Retrievers. Paul has both a USDA federal kennel license, which is required where he currently resides, and is an AKC breeder of merit. We've also been in touch with St. Tammany Parish Animal Control and have a full understanding of the laws that we will need to comply with for their zoning and requirements for a kennel license. Many people have expressed a concern about shooting guns to train the dogs. The owners of the recently purchased lots have found multiple deer tree stands, and the property was being used for hunting as recently as this year. However, we will not be shooting guns on the property. Our lot of 5.5 acres that borders other houses is far, far too small to safely shoot a firearm. Furthermore, these dogs leave in the morning and go off property for the majority of their training during the day. He has access to multiple sites with far more acreage where he trains. The dogs will merely be housed there in the afternoons and evenings and fed there, where we can be with them 24/7, and they are not left in a building with no one to see them. The client dogs typically come, as I mentioned, for 6 months to a year. Oftentimes, we meet the owner to pick up the dogs from dog shows and bring them back with us. We breed those few litters a year, and when the puppies are old enough to go home, we require that our puppy buyers come and pick up their puppy in person. We do this because we want to meet them and ensure they are a good fit for our puppy. We do not ship puppies out without meeting the owner. This would mean 4 to 8 cars spread over a day or two, a few times a year. There would be no traffic impact to the neighborhood. There is no one that likes to listen to dogs barking constantly, including us. We have zero tolerance for continuous barking, and part of the training Paul does is teaching dogs to be quiet. The dogs will be housed in an indoor air-conditioned heated building. Sure, they're going to go outside to use the bathroom and play, but they will not be housed in outdoor runs full-time. All of the dogs Paul trains are family pets first and foremost, and when they are with us, we treat them with the love and care their owners would give them. Most of the dogs are also conformation show dogs, and their owners trust Paul because they know their dog will come back in great condition and they can step right back into the show ring. I want to reiterate, the lot in question here is not a part of the subdivision, and I was not contacted after the first call with any additional information from the subdivision, and only learned on Saturday that the neighborhood was opposing this. I am happy to work with the neighborhood and put some type of deed or restricted covenants on the lot. I understand many of them have concerns about what could happen to the lot after I sell it, and would be happy to work with them to find an amicable solution to everyone. I respectfully ask that you consider this rural overlay given the information that I have shared with you tonight.
Anything else?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this rural overlay? Okay, we'll go to those that are opposing the rural overlay, and we have, huh?
There's no way we can have all of these.
No, we've only got 10 minutes for those that are opposing it. And what was your name, sir?
Muldrow Etheridge.
Okay, let us find your card here. And
I have it.
okay, you have it? Okay.
Shall I begin?
Yeah, you can begin.
I'm speaking on behalf of not only the Magnolia Gardens Bow Glen Civic Association and the Bow Glen Civic Association, but I'm also speaking on behalf of the residents and property owners on Johnson Road and in the Pine Edge Land Estate. And just, Ms. LaPointe talked about the different zoning. Her property is located right here on, it's located at the corner of Johnson Road and Dogwood. Dogwood Lane is the main street that goes right through the center of the Bow Glen subdivision. She's actually right across the street from the Magnolia Gardens. This area here is the Magnolia Gardens. Over here is the Pine Edge Estates. All of these people in red here have been contacted. When we found out about this, as the president of the association, I was inundated with telephone calls, emails, and texts opposing it. So we had a big meeting with everybody in the area, and at that meeting, so many people were opposed to it, we decided to send out a petition. And in the petition, it simply stated, those of you who were opposed to it, sign it. In the time that we had, we were able to contact 83% of the residences in the Magnolia Gardens and Bow Glen area, and we were able to contact 75% of the people along Johnson Road and in this area over here. And 100% of the people who saw the petition signed it, and they're opposed to it, this zoning change. And well, you see how many people here in the audience are opposed to it. I think we have a total now of over 250 voters have signed the petition. As all of you know, the St. Tammany Parish government completed the comprehensive rezoning of the entire parish back in 2010 and adopted the Northwest Area Zoning Map that includes the area in question, this area right here. All of this area in red here, Ms. LaPointe's property, all of this, and the area in blue that is up for sale is all A1. It's on the, not only that map, but it's on the Northwest Study Area Rural Overlay map. Let me tell you something about the Magnolia Gardens Bow Glen Civic Association that maybe some of you don't know. The two subdivisions are located in the Bogue Rivers Nature Preserve. It's a nature preserve. The Little Bogfilia River, which is a scenic river, runs through Magnolia Gardens. The Big Bogfilia River is a scenic river. It runs through the Bow Glen subdivision. The two rivers converge in Magnolia Gardens. In 2003, the Parish Council voted and designated designated the Bogue Rivers Nature Preserve, which consists of the Magnolia Gardens and Bogue Glen subdivision, as a designated scenic neighborhood. It's the first designated scenic neighborhood in the parish, and from what I have been able to determine, it's still the only designated scenic neighborhood. We're a special, very close neighborhood. We don't have any sidewalks in the neighborhood. People are walking, cycling, strolling, jogging on the streets. Many of the people have lived in this area for years and years. I know some of them. I know Annette Dosky, her parents bought a house there in 1948 and built their house in 1950. She's been going there since 1950. She built her own house there in 1970 and has lived there ever since. But let me tell you something about not just the Magnolia Gardens, Bow Glen, but the people on Johnson Road. I have a copy of the email that Ann Johnson Bailey sent to the Parish Council. She sent it to them instead of you. I am Ann Johnson Bailey, and my family has owned property here my entire life. The Magnolia Gardens, Johnson Road area is one of the prettiest residential areas in the parish. My grandfather, Niels F. Johnson, built the road, and that's why the parish named it after him. And I'm certain my grandfather would be disheartened to think a commercial enterprise would be allowed to upset the equilibrium of the area. She wrote that to David Fitzgerald, and it said, having a dog kennel and someone boarding and training dogs for sport is not conducive with this quiet neighborhood. In addition, the residential properties in the area will lose value. Part of the response that she received from David Fitzgerald, he wrote, I agree. Where you live is one of the best places to live in the parish. I share your desire to keep it so. David Fitzgerald has subsequently with some residents have had subsequent conversations with them, and he says he supports the wishes of the majority of the Magnolia Garden property owners and Bow Glen property owners. He supports the wishes of the majority of this is what he wrote. He supports the wishes of the majority of the people in Magnolia Gardens, Bow Glen. Eric Johnson, he wrote, this is to advise I'm opposed to any change in the current zoning. I have invested substantially in my property, and based upon the comfort of the current zoning, my property extends from Johnson Road south and west into Magnolia Gardens. We all are a residential community, and we would adversely be affected by this. We've heard from real estate agents, if this property zoning is changed to rural overlay, when the people buy this lot here, and they come and they want this, if you approve this as a rural overlay, why would you not let the people who buy this property or this entire property? The rural overlay, like was said, is for agricultural purposes. Agricultural means you grow animals to eat, or you grow vegetables and other things to eat. If you do this, you're going to potentially open a floodgate to ruin our neighborhood. Let me see. Well, as you said, your staff recommends that it not be that it rejects the proposal. The comprehensive rezoning designated. They did a 2-year study rezoning the entire parish, and the conclusion was this would be A1. The staff recommends it. Everybody opposes it. Our councilman says that he would do whatever the majority of the people. Right now it's 100% oppose it. Okay. I tender my time to,
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. State your name and address.
Yes, my name is Dina Willette. I live at 20 Pipes Loop, the Magnolia Gardens, Bow Glen subdivision. I am the one that spoke with Miss LaPointe. That conversation took place on June the 18th, approximately 10:45 in the morning. I left the conversation with her that day. We even communicated via text, and I requested a copy of the plans so we can review them. I listened to everything that she, told me about the development, so I could bring it back to, the board members. And at that time, she told me a little bit about the project. She mentioned 12 to 15 dogs on the property at one time. I have bad notes, but nevertheless, this is my scribbled notes. 12 to 15 dogs at one time, and that they would be breeding dogs, boarding dogs, and training dogs. These dogs are hunting dogs. I did ask about the issue of potentially firing, guns, because I'm assuming these dogs are trained with guns, and we wanted to get some more information. The last text that I had from Ms. LaPointe, when I requested the additional information, I said, Lauren, thanks for speaking with me this morning. My email address is dinawillette@gmail.com. If you could possibly email us the site plan so that I can speak to the other homeowners and the board about it, it would be greatly appreciated. She responded, as soon as I have the site plan, I will let you know. The rough plan is to have the house towards Dogwood and Johnson Corner, the Johnson Corner and the kennel on Johnson. The main thing about this subdivision, I moved there 2 years ago. I'm a local realtor. I have practiced here in St. Tammany for the last 19 years. Me and my husband could have chose anywhere to live, but we chose this place because of the nature preserve that's there and the scenic designation, which I have the charter here where this property was designated scenic. Thank you.
All right, that's the end of the normal 10-minute on the for and against. We go into rebuttal. And Ms. LaPointe, it's you got 5 minutes to rebut, and then there'll be 5 minutes for the other side to rebut.
They did indeed ask for a copy of the site plan, but as I mentioned to you in the beginning, this is not a question of what we are building. However, it is a question of how we are using it. I do not have a site plan. I will be happy to provide it with them as soon as I have one. But again, what we are building is not the question that's at stake here. There will be indeed, as she mentioned, a total of 12 to 15 dogs there. We have our own personal dogs in addition to the kennel dogs. This is not going to be a commercial enterprise, as Ms. Johnson has suggested. There are multiple home-based businesses, according to Councilman Fitzgerald, in the neighborhood already. This should be treated as such. It just happens to fall under an agricultural overlay standpoint. While he says they're 100% against it, please keep in mind that that is only the people that he talked to, and he did state that he's only spoken with 75% of the people on Johnson and 83% on Magnolia Gardens. I feel many of these people stated that they were against it, not knowing the full scope of the project and not having any type of understanding of what was going on. As I mentioned before, we are happy to put restricted covenants on the property that will help satisfy the neighborhood association that something could happen down the road. He mentioned that Lot 3 could also be requested for rural overlay. Sure, it could be, but it currently does not border anything that is rural overlay, and I feel that's an important distinction in this case. We have no interest in ruining the neighborhood. This lot continues to have A1 zoning with the rural overlay, and we continue to have to abide by the A1 zoning status as far as that goes. As for this being a scenic neighborhood, we are all in favor of that. We want to be a part of a scenic neighborhood. We are not in the nature preserve, as they keep talking about. Their neighborhood and their subdivision is. Our lot is not part of that nature preserve. However, we certainly would never want to do anything that would impact the nature preserve. And being hunters, we oftentimes have to rely on natural and public lands and do everything we can to preserve and maintain the lands around us. This project should not impact in any way the neighborhood and should be considered an asset to the neighborhood. The real estate value should not go down any more so than the man who operates a business out of his home down the street. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you.
don't know who the man down the street is that is running the business, but Char? Ms. LaPointe says it borders and rural overlay. You know, this is it over here. She borders this area right here, which is part of the Bogue Rivers Nature Preserve. This lot right here is, all of these right here are the Bogue Rivers Nature Preserve. Property over here is, well, if anybody wants to buy the property over there and build the house, I'm sure they'll have a lot of fun with the flooding over there. But let me point out what it says when the parish designated our area as a scenic neighborhood. It took in the purposes of a scenic neighborhood designation in a residential neighborhood. Among the things it considers is ones to inspire, cultivate, and preserve scenic features which enhance quality of life for residents, to foster new compatible growth, and to provide residents and property owners with a tool for encouraging and strengthening civic pride. I'm sorry that Ms. LaPointe didn't come to us ahead of time. I think she just bought the property in May and just assumed that this was going to happen. And once again, what if you give the rural overlay here and these people here want to build a pig farm, you're going to have to do it to them too. I don't know. I've never met a dog that didn't bark. In fact, I have a neighbor who lives several houses down from me who has one dog that sort of drives me crazy. And if we have as many dogs as she's talking about, I would pity, she wants to put the kennel, I would assume, right here. I would pity the people who bought this property. I would pity the people who live over here, you know, all in here, and who knows, and the future people who are going to be living here. It doesn't exactly border a rural overlay. The rural overlay is on the other side of Johnson Road. I just would respectfully request that you consider that everybody opposes it. The comprehensive rezoning 2-year study designates it A1, and your staff even recommends that this be rejected. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be part of the rebuttal on against? Yes, come up, state your name and address. You got, looks like 2 minutes and 45 seconds.
My name's Craig Schimpf. I live at number 12 Pipes Loop. I think most people in here are just like me. They didn't just fall off an apple cart the other day. And there's a lot of land at St. Tammany Parish. There's a lot of rural land at St. Tammany Parish. And a lot of people go and buy that land because they don't want codes, covenants, restrictions telling what they can and cannot do. The overwhelming majority of people who bought land in here bought it because it has codes, covenants, restrictions, so that they were confident that when they bought the property that it was going to be what it is and not change what it is. Some things you can't control. In March of 2016, we were part of the lucky ones who got flooded from that thing. That's an act of God. We recognize there's nothing we can do about that. But we bought this property. In fact, we just recently have some dear friends of ours from Jefferson Parish, which is where I'm from originally as well, who just made a healthy purchase of some property on Claudia to build. And this project has them completely in a state of flux of whether they will or will not build. You know, all I can say is that if you want to put a project like this out there, there's plenty of land out there that are already set up for you to be able to do it. We bought and we paid the money we paid to live where we are because of the codes and the restrictions in there. We'd like to see it stay that way. We can't control flooding, we can't control Mother Nature, but this is something we can control. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The other lady that made a presentation, she stood up a minute ago. Do you have any further comments?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make the comment, as I said, I am a local realtor, and I do think that this property and what is proposed with the metal building that she had referenced to me, and I've yet to see the plans, nor has the rest of the homeowners. But the indoor-outdoor runs, this, where she's proposing to build it, even though she's saying it's not in our subdivision. And I question that because Energy that advertised it is advertising it as Bow Glen Magnolia Garden lots available. If you pull up their website right now, that's what it says. And it was advertised as coming into the subdivision. However, I don't know if it is or not. We'll need to check into that. But it's the entrance of our subdivision. It's one of the main entrances where they're talking about putting this dog kennel. And as a realtor, my opinion is it will affect property value, negatively affect property value. I don't know anybody that I've ever done business with over the last almost 20 years that says, can you find me a location next to a dog kennel? They just don't do it. So we do all believe that it will negatively affect our property value. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the time has, well, there's 2 seconds left, and I don't think anybody can make a presentation in 2 seconds, so I'm gonna close the floor to those in attendance and bring it back to the commission. Mr. Baggett. Try it now.
Yeah, I would like to move to concur with the recommendation of the staff and move for denial.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Willie.
Yeah, I'm real familiar with this area, defended it many years ago in a lot of different situations. And normally rural overlay is a good thing, but not here. And main reason is because of the commercial aspect of it. And that's why I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any of the other commissioners wish to speak? Please vote.
The motion to deny is passed.
Thank you. See what there?
One, two, three, four, five, six, seven.
Kurt, got you saying you didn't vote? I'd agree, you didn't. Oh, it says
So
no
it's
vote.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's 7. Do we?
Yeah, clear, let's revote.
He voted nay.
All right.
The vote against has passed.
Okay. That's right. And,
Do we need 8
pardon? Yes, 8-1.
7.
Okay. The motion to
To deny.
allow the rural overlay from this commission was denied. Okay, Ms. Laporte can appeal that to the council now. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. We're going to wait just a minute to let the folks get out of the area.
Ladies and gentlemen, we still have other items to vote on. If you wish to discuss this, you can do it outside.
Thank you. We gotta figure out how to. We got.
Get the minutes. And see how to fix it. Well, we got the minutes right, but I don't know how to fix the second. But when it's some left over to go to it, it doesn't take it off unless you start out, unless you clear it, start all over. Maybe we have to clear it.
All right, we're basically have folks cleared out. Next item on the agenda is item 1, it's 2019-1451ZC, an ordinance to amend and reenact the St. Tammany Parish Code of Ordinances, Chapter 22, licenses, and Chapter 130, Unified Development Code, to provide definitions, regulations regarding short-term rentals, to add short-term rentals as a permitted use in certain commercial and mixed-use zoning districts within unincorporated St. Tammany Parish, and to provide for penalties and fines for violation. Staff, you have any comments? Lauren?
This is just a continuation of what you postponed last month.
Okay, thank you. Anyone in the audience wish to make any comments on this? Yes, sir, come forward and state your name and address.
I'm E.J. Lemieux, Salado, Louisiana, lifelong resident except for military service. And I'd have to take issue when you say it's just a continuation of what we put off last time. There's dramatic changes to this ordinance.
That's correct.
And I'm not bad on the internet, and I sure couldn't pull up any updated copy on the internet. So this is the first time we're seeing this. I mean, there are a couple of there are a couple of situations in it that I don't know that really concern me. One is the non-conforming use section. First, let me back up. I'm against short-term rentals in residential areas. I think you probably know that. I mean, I've been to just about every meeting that we've had on it. But it looks like all the citizen input, and I like to work with the parish. I've always been on good terms with the parish, but the citizen input's kind of been pushed to the side. I mean, I know that, the chairman made the amendment about homestead exemption, and you can do it if you're living in the home.
Basically, I read into the amendments what various parts of the parish government, from the district attorney's office to some of the council people, one of the commissioners here, and the director of planning had suggested that these amendments be put in.
Well, if they're worried about legal challenges, I don't think they have to worry about that anymore, because I don't think there's any reason to legally challenge this, to be honest with you. But specifically, I know two things that were changed. The date when you had to be registered as a hotel motel, I think, was December 31st, 2018, excuse me, in the original document. And now I think that's been scratched out to the effective date of the ordinance. So whenever that is, if it's August, September, or whenever the ordinance would go into effect. So really, people just had to go down and register, and bam, they're legal. But believe it or not, that doesn't concern me the most. The thing that concerns me the most is the legal non-conforming short-term rental, the definition of it. I mean, normally it's been, my experience when the parish had, unconditional uses and blah, 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 that they've done away with, a non-conforming use, if they change ownership, then that's considered a change. Now, the way I read this, I'm not so sure that's the case. In other words, an existing short-term rental could be sold, and as long as it's kept as a short-term rental within 6 months, then it's considered to be legal. So am I reading that right, or am I reading it wrong?
Yeah, I'm gonna let legal answer that, Attorney Michael.
You're not reading it wrong, but I do think you have a misunderstanding of legal nonconforming uses. It doesn't necessarily, and Helen, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's more about the continuous operation than the ownership.
Well, it says continuous operation, but it can stop for 6 months.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be continuous.
But if the ownership changes?
We wrote it to more or less match our standard legal nonconforming use, which is a pretty standard definition of a legal nonconforming use across the country.
Which says that if you change ownership,
If the use does not cease for more than 6 months and it's immediately transferred, it can continue.
yeah, so
And
we're
that would be
talk-
for any business across
So
the
we're
parish.
talking about in perpetuity here. you
That's
know?
correct.
So, like I say, if we're worried about legal challenges, I think we've taken care of that. But, the thing I like to see is some citizen input with this. I know that, people are gonna say, well, this has been going on for a year. And I say that too. It's been going on for a year. But I don't really think any of the input has hit the mark. I mean, I don't believe in conspiracy theories and things like that. I mean, I know everybody is doing the best job they can. But when this went into the kitchen, I mean, what came out of the oven was entirely different than what we all led to believe would come out. So,
If I may, Chairman, I do want to make clear that that draft, which is in front of you, which I believe the commission has on the agenda for the purpose of the public being able to view all of it, and it also should be available on the parish website as of about a month ago. I'm sorry if you couldn't find it. That reflects every articulated suggestion that we received, whether anyone agrees with it or not, including quite a few from the community. So I have received emails from people from the community with articulated requests to
I
amend
sent
the
an email. I
ordinance.
sent an email. To Ms.
now-
Riles, anyway.
That's me.
Okay.
So things that are, just ask for a deletion of the entire ordinance or things like that. But I did receive specific language change requests, and whether we agree with it or not, and whether the commission agrees with it or not, or I think it's a good idea or not, I added it in so that the commission and the council had the ability to see every suggestion that's been made to the public.
Well, I appreciate that, but I don't think this was available last month because I heard
It was
Mr.
not.
Doherty saying, look.
He
we
read
just-
it into
we
the
just got
record
this,
last month.
Yeah,
He
I
read it into the record.
last month, and that basically, about a week before is when the commissioners got a copy of it, okay? So it's only been 5 weeks, I'm gonna say, that we've seen it, and we had it posted on the website, which, it's there, but you
Boy, I
gotta know
tell you
where to
what,
go look
it's hard
for
to
it.
find, because
Yeah.
I sure couldn't find it.
Yeah. So it is there. I'd looked it up to be sure that it was there, okay? So,
So I don't know where we are now, but this is totally different, I think, than most citizens expected.
yeah, well, there's some other folks that want to have some comment, and I hear what you're saying, okay?
So, but the general feeling about short-term rentals, and I used to be in the rental business for 28 years. A short-term rental to me was anything less than a year. So when you're talking about renting your house by the day, and that's what we're talking about, renting houses by the day. I mean, you have 2 residential homes on, let's say, 60-foot lots. And all of a sudden, boom, one comes up for sale and it becomes a short-term rental. And it's gonna be rented by the day, if it's popular, every weekend, with 8, 10, 12, 14 people. I mean, people are really suffering with this, if you want to call it a business model.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, there's some restrictions in there as to the number of people that can be in certain zoning classifications. So, and there's some other folks here that would like to speak as well.
Okay. Well, is there any chance of reworking this non-conforming use section?
There's a lot of chance. I mean, it's,
Well, you know-
it's not a done deal yet.
Well, thank goodness, because
No, it's,
I would absolutely, look, this is a tiny step in the right direction, but I would absolutely like to see that if a property is sold, then it ceases operation as a short-term rental.
thank you. There was one or two more that. Yes, sir. State your name and address.
Scott Martin, 240 Lakeview Drive, Slidell, Louisiana. I bought residential property. They did too, except they want to use it as a commercial use. If y'all allow this, there's no reason for this zoning commission here. Y'all zoning is useless. You know, they bought residential property. They have, look up the definition of residence or residential. It's where you reside. It's not a flop house, all right? You want to pimp out our neighborhoods for a $1,000 fee is what you want to do. How many of y'all live next door or across the street or behind a short-term rental? Raise your hand. How do you like it? All right, I didn't. I bought in a desirable area, all right? Y'all want to destroy that. Yeah, you do.
It's not a conversation between us.
No, we have 20 cars parked in
wait a
there
minute,
with
wait a
beer
minute.
bottles busted. It's a party every weekend on the lake. That's what this is all about.
Okay, well, there's still a lot of work to be done on this ordinance, and very honestly, I don't think tonight is going to, come with either a for or against from this commission at this point in time.
There should be no commercial operations like this in a residential area.
And
We've
I hear you.
invested millions of dollars, and
And I
I've
hear you.
already collected names for people to file a class action suit against St. Tammany Parish. I've notified the council members already, and the short-term rental operators. You know, and I guess that's where it's gonna go.
Okay,
Here's my appeal request.
okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? I'll give you just a minute or two if you do. Yes, sir.
I'm Spencer King. I'm an attorney. I represent
State your name again.
Spencer King. I represent Tim and Ann Melius, who own property in Treasure Isle, in Slidell. I just for the record, I just wanted to note their position, which is basically that when they have, you know, the major reason they purchased their property, it was a second home where renting out short-term was a very important reason why they bought the property. They have a documented history of renting out the property. And our position, I mean, we don't oppose this ordinance as in its current form, but our position has always been that a full-scale ban on people like the Meliuses who, you know, who have a history of doing this, and just preventing them from continuing to enjoy the reason that they bought the property is depriving them of their investment-backed expectation in the property and is a regulatory taking and is
Okay.
unconstitutional.
Thank you. I hear you.
Thank
There
you.
was a gentleman over here. Oh, we got two gentlemen.
My name's Donald Dakota. I live at 49 North Treasure Isle. I'm Tim Melius's neighbor, okay? And he advertises short-term his house for 6 people at a time. He has families every weekend. Over 30 people. I took pictures of 30 people, 13 automobiles, and they drinking and they partying the whole freaking night, the whole weekend. And as far as him, they did not do that. They built that house for themselves. They tried to sell it for 2 years and they couldn't sell it, so they started renting it. So they
Okay.
lying. He's lying.
Okay,
For
thank
them.
you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is John Martinez. I'm 106 Barber Lane in Eden Niles. I recently had a short-term rental move into me. I'll be brief as I can. We purchased our home because we knew that this was for single-family homes. We didn't buy an apartment or a condo, single-family homes. If you let this to continue throughout the parish, this is gonna pop up and come into the sheriff's department's face every time this happens. We've already had 3 instances at my home already. The police have been called twice. They started it in March. We have been forced to become the short-term rentals property managers. Flat out, we have to be the one to call the police, or we have to call the property manager or the owner. If we do call the police and the owners find out about it, the owners can keep the let's say guest damage deposit. So they make money when we complain. Well, great, they can make money off, but why do we have to be the ones to do it? So you're looking for input. I have 6 people around this one house in my neighborhood. I'm the only one here, okay? The other ones on the outside of that doesn't bother them because they're not directly next to them. So you have to understand that.
Okay.
Why you're not see what the input is. The money, I see y'all want to make money off of this with charging them for hotel motel tax and a license. These renters make a minimum 2.5 times the rent they would if they rented it out by the month. You need to look at these things before you decide. This problem is not going away if you allow them to continue, because the next one's going to come do it in another neighborhood, and they're going to be calling the police every time they do this.
Okay, thank
Only
you.
been since March. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to close the floor to the public and bring it back to the commission at this point in time. Commissioner Reshord.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Much like the residents, we're frustrated by it, but I need to say this. We need a short-term rental ordinance because we have people now that are doing this because we don't have an ordinance. There's no way to actually protect them if we don't. We have to protect the property rights of the people who own the property, and more importantly, we have to protect the property rights of the people who live around them. Now, with this particular ordinance as it's drafted, and there's a lot of good work that's going into this, but I'm not comfortable with it yet. There's a lot of things in here that I don't think there's enough teeth. I don't like the grandfather clause. There's a variety of things here, and frankly, I don't feel that we have the expertise as this body to make a recommendation to the council. So what I'd like to do, and it's not finished, it's not a finished product. There's not been enough public input. But I will say this, it's sweeping the nation. The next generation of millennials, they think there's no issues and no worries with short-term rentals, and I'd rather us get ahead of it and do it right than hodgepodge it. So what I'd like to do is make a motion to send this back to the council without a recommendation and ask that they, because we don't have the authority or the budget, hire some experts out there and get enough information so that we can make intelligent decisions. Because I think otherwise I just don't like the way this process is going. I don't think anybody's going to be happy. And probably no one's going to be happy when we finish. But I do believe we have to have a short-term rental ordinance or it's going to be the Wild Wild West out there. Right now we have bad actors who are getting around our ordinances and getting around our zoning laws using short-term rentals as the excuse. So I think, in looking at, and I mentioned I have short-term rental near me. I live in Covington. They passed a short-term rental ordinance. It's not a problem. It's very tight. There's no such thing as having 13 and 15 cars and all that. It tells you you can have 2 cars and they have to be off-street, and you can only have 6 people in this house, and here are the house rules. We need to have them posted online, and so forth and so on. And fire marshals need to come in and check for fire extinguishers. It's a big deal. I just know that absent doing nothing is going to cause us as much problems as going through this process. And my recommendation, my motion to this body is to send it back to the council without recommendation and ask that they get us some additional information so we can make a good decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Commissioner Randolph.
I second that motion.
Okay, second by Commissioner Randolph. Mr. Baggett, did you have Commissioner Drum?
I'm speaking not as a commissioner up here, but now I'm going to speak as an individual who owns a house in a subdivision. I do not also wish, as it's written now, to go with this ordinance. I have a nice house. I moved to the North Shore for the quietness. I wanted to get away from Carnival, Jazz Fest, Essen Fest, and all the other festas that are out there, all the drunks, and I don't want anybody in my neighborhood either who can come in and make a mess of my neighbor's house, make a mess of the noise, and we don't know what kind of people might rent for a short period of time. What if they're not vested correctly and it's a pedophile? We got to have stuff like this looked into. That's why we're not going to make a vote this evening. We're going to give it back to the council. We're going to recommend that they get specialists in, just like Covington and Mandeville did, and then bring something back. And then if I'm not happy with it, I'm not going to be happy with it. But right now, we have nothing written past that is going to affect anybody. But there are a lot of people who are doing business as a short-term rental, and there's no control on them. And we need to get control before it gets too far out of control. So give us time, let us see what we can get, and believe me, we're working for your benefit because we are you. So just give us some time, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Baggett, you?
Yeah, one of the main problems I see, and hopefully this will be remedied, is most of the problems you have are at night, and the parish people, enforcement people do not work at night. Now, I understand they're going to be turning that over to the constables, is that true?
That bill passed the legislature.
Yeah, so that's going to be the problem, is enforcing the ordinance when we get it done.
Okay. Yeah, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote.
The motion to send it back to council has passed.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is item 2, 2019-1464-ZC. Existing zoning's A1 Suburban District. Proposed zoning is A5 Two-Family Residential District. It's 1.14 acres. The petitioner's Barbara Deach. Owner's Barbara Deach. Parcel located on the east side of Louisiana Highway 25, north of $1 Million Road, south of Brule Road, being 78488 Louisiana Highway 25 and 78492 Louisiana Highway 25, Folsom, Ward 2, District 3. Staff?
The 2025 Future Land Use Plan designates the site to be developed with residential and agricultural uses. Staff is not completely opposed to the requested zoning change to A5 Two-Family Residential District, considering it would allow for the existing legal nonconforming uses to be brought into compliance with the appropriate zoning designation. However, staff does have concerns that the site's 1.14 acres would allow for additional dwelling units to be placed on the property, as a maximum density permitted in the A5 Two-Family Residential District is 8 dwelling units per acre. Notwithstanding the foregoing, these concerns are partly alleviated considering that the current configuration of the existing two-family dwellings on the property would make it difficult for the site to be developed with additional dwelling units. Staff recommends that the request be approved.
Thank you. Barbara Deach, is she here? Please come to the mic. state your name and address and so I know how to pronounce it.
My name is actually Barbara Deach Ricks. The Ricks gets inadvertently left off the paperwork.
Okay.
I live at 15070 Brule Road, Folsom, adjacent to this property. In 2003, I built one duplex, and it was zoned at that time rural, and it was built on the back part of the property I own. There are two pieces to the property. This was given the address of 78488 Highway 25. The zoning was permissible for multi-dwelling at that point. In 2008, I built a second duplex. That was given the rural number of 78492 Highway 25. And that was still at that time zoned for multifamily dwellings. In 2010, you had the rezoning, and for some reason, I have no idea why, the zoning was changed to A1 despite the fact that there were pre-existing duplexes already on the property. All I'm asking is for the property to be zoned appropriately, which is A5, not A1.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor? Anyone wish to speak against? I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Willie.
Staff, the petitioner mentioned that she built the second one in 2008. Is that correct? Yes. Wasn't our comprehensive rezoning done in 2006?
2009, sir.
9, so it was a year before, so it was still zoned rural.
Correct.
Now, were multifamily permitted in two, on the same parcel, were two multifamily units permitted on a piece of property in rural zoning?
It wasn't the same piece.
I'm addressing staff.
Actually, it's not multifamily, but duplexes in particular were permitted under the rural zoning.
Okay. You mentioned that because of the configuration of the buildings on the property, a third one probably couldn't be built. Is that correct?
It is not completely impossible if you look at the drawing, or if you look at the configuration that you can see.
Well, I'm leading up to this next question.
However, it would be difficult to fit another one.
Okay, my next question is, it's 1.14 acres. If all the buildings were cleared, how many duplexes can we put on that property?
Excuse me?
If
in the
it was
event that it
vacant
would
property.
disappear? I can pull up the A5 zoning.
Let's see what the maximum is.
The maximum net density under A5 would allow up to 8 dwelling units per acre. So potentially 4 duplexes of 2 units each.
So 4 duplexes could go on that 1.14 acres with parking and roads and everything else.
Mhm.
That's one of my concerns, is what could happen to that property, because it's surrounded by A1, and putting A5 in the middle of A1, I'm not real happy with that, especially if something could happen down the road, where they could put 8 units in the middle of a rural area like that. So I'm gonna move for denial.
We have a motion by Mr. Willie to deny. Commissioner Fitzmaurice, you had. Commissioner Drum.
I would like to second that motion.
Motion second by Commissioner Drum. Any other commissioners have any comment? Please vote. Commissioner Richard.
I just have a quick question to staff. Is there any other option here for this particular property other than A5?
Not that I'm aware of, because the next step would be to go to an A6 multifamily, which I don't think we're trying to go to a more dense zoning. The only potential option would be to maybe reduce the size. In other words, instead of rezoning the entire 1.14 acres, is to maybe limit the zoning to a portion that would, just enclose where the building is or smaller, if they would be willing to reduce the size of, but we would need to have a new legal description.
That's,
There it is.
that's interesting. Obviously, it's non-conforming. It's not, we're very concerned about spot zoning. We don't want to have this kind of density or potential density in that area. It already exists, so we're trying to find a solution that's not going to put us in any more trouble. Now, what she's suggesting means we probably couldn't vote for it tonight, but if the amount of land that you were requesting to be rezoned could be shrunk, correct? Is that correct? We would have a new legal description or a smaller lot? In other words, the whole lot would be A1, but a part of it would be A5, which would allow, his concern is that you could put 8 units on it. Do you understand?
The thing, I have a sale pending on the property now, and the sale is dependent upon the change to the zoning. I didn't even realize the zoning had been gone to A1
I got you.
until the prospective buyers advised me that they found the A1 designation.
Okay, let's the commissioners finish the discussion, please. Todd, do you have anything else?
No, that's my question. I was trying to find a solution here, but if you're telling me that we can't find that we can't produce this off, push this off another month, then that's a challenge.
Could I
Thank
say
you.
something, please? Just for a second.
If you want to answer my question.
Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
The deal is, I understand Mr. Willie's concerns, and I agree that is a problem, but the problem is, one of the things is my mom lives behind it, she owns all the property behind it. So neighbors, you're talking about, things like that. The other property to the north of it, totally vacant, nobody owns that. They own it, but no lots on it,
No
property,
buildings.
no buildings. So there's only one neighbor that borders the south side, that's it. So as
Okay,
far as-
we have an item here that we've got to deal with,
Yes,
okay?
sir.
And I understand what you're saying,
And-
but let us go ahead and take care of this item. And if you disagree with whatever the commission comes up with, you can appeal it to the council, okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
Well, I have one question for well, maybe Helen knows, of the property owner. Are these currently occupied?
Yes,
But, so there's all 4?
all 4 have been occupied from the day they were built.
Okay, so then that's my question. What happens if we don't allow it?
It's a legal non-conforming use.
Right. So it would just remain as it is?
Correct.
Commissioner Willie.
I know I'm, again, with staff, trying to find a way maybe to help. Is it possible, I've never asked this before, to just rezone the house pads and leave the rest A1?
Well, it's probably better to recommend to rezone a small portion.
Because
around.
they on each end of the property, so it's hard to say,
But-
okay, half the property, you can't do it that way.
Because of, in the event that they would have to rebuild, then if maybe there's other setbacks or something like that, they may have to,
Or-
but it's not impossible to maybe come up with a way where you would not rezone the entire 1.14
Right,
acres.
or just half of it.
You would
or
have
something.
to consult with your a surveyor to have another legal description done.
Right, and I don't know how much space you could have for setbacks and things like that in, in the A5. You may have to go beyond the house pad. I was just using that, as trying to tell you what I would like to help with, but maybe she can entertain that idea with a surveyor or plat designer or something. So, I'm
Okay.
gonna stand with my motion.
Pardon?
I'm gonna stay with my motion.
You're gonna stay with your motion to deny, And we have a second on that, right?
Yes, by Mr.
Okay.
Drum.
Any further discussion? Please vote.
We have 6 for, it's passing.
Yeah, it's
The
passed.
motion to deny has passed.
Right. Okay, next item is item 3, 2019-1474-ZC. Existing zoning is A1 Suburban District. Proposed zoning is A1 Suburban District and Manufactured Housing Overlay. It's 5 acres. Petitioner's Terrence Ryan, and the owner's Terrence Ryan, parcel located on the south side of Boyd Road, east of Tantilla Ranch Road, Ward 1, District 3. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the western portion of the site to be maintained as a timber district for the production of wood products, species habitat, and stormwater retention, and the eastern portion of the site to be maintained as a conservation area used for human enjoyment and recreation while preserving the natural environment. Staff does not have any objection to the request for the manufactured housing overlay, considering the site is abutting residential uses to the north and undeveloped land to the east, south, and west. Staff recommends that the request be approved.
Thank you. Terrence Ryan, are you here? Please come forward and state your name and address.
My name is Darnell Ryan. Right now, my husband's out of town, so I'm here for him.
Okay.
Address 13336 Boyd Road, Covington, 70435.
Okay. And you're wanting to add a manufactured housing overlay to this zoning, right? Are you gonna bring a manufactured home in there?
Yes.
Is there any, looks like there's 2 houses or two rooftops, I wanna say.
Okay. The way the property's situated, it's privately owned, a total of 40 acres. We have 5. His grandparents had, I think it was 2, and the remainder of the 40 is his father. So it's all family. So those rooftops are a log cabin house, which was his grandmother's, and his father's home.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in favor?
Dr. Martin.
Yes, sir. Mr. Doc Martin, good evening to you.
Good evening. John Martin, 12375 Ark Road. The Ryans have lived there for a long time. There are a number of mobile homes on Boyd Road, so this is not anything unusual on the road. They live on the east end of Boyd Road. On the west end, adjacent to my property, is a brother, Rick Ryan, and he was in a mobile home also. So no one has called me to raise a question about this, and I see no reason to question this. This fits in with what's there. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in favor? Anyone wish to speak against? I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commissioners. Commissioner Willie.
Question of staff. She mentioned they had a log cabin on the property. Is a mobile home permitted on, is one dwelling per unit per 5 acres? So is she able to do that, or she has to keep it under a certain size?
Well, it appears according to the attached document that they're planning on going through a minor subdivision.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, so the acres that is gonna be rezoned is the one, one of the 5 acres, if I'm not mistaken.
You got parcel
Yeah,
C and D.
5 acres, so it appears to be vacant.
So it's 5 acres is vacant?
I think so, I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, I was just under the impression it was a log cabin on the property.
There's a log cabin somewhere, but it might be on the 11.78 acre.
Okay, there's no problem. I move for approval.
Motion by Commissioner Willie to approve. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
A second.
Second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further discussion? Please vote.
The motion to approve has passed.
Thank you. Item 4, 2019-1475-ZC. Existing zonings A2 Suburban District, proposed zonings HC2 Highway Commercial District. It's 1 acre. Petitioner is Robert Fielding. The owner is Robert Fielding. Location is parcel located on the north side of Louisiana Highway 21, east of Louisiana Highway 40, being 81819 Louisiana Highway 21, Bush, Ward 5, District 6. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan designates the site to be developed with varying degrees of commercial uses. Staff does not have any objection to the request, as the site is located along an existing highway, is abutting commercial zoning on the west side, and the request meets the objectives of the 2025 future land use plan. Staff recommends that this request be approved.
Thank you. Mr. Fielding, Robert Fielding? Good evening, sir.
Good evening, thank you. Ron Ward with the Ward Law Firm, 1011 North Causeway, Mandeville, Louisiana. I represent Robert Fielding, the petitioner. This is simply just a request to change it from A2 Suburban to HC2 Commercial, Highway Commercial. Right next door, there was a store. This property is right along that stretch of Highway 21 where there is commercial buildings already, commercial businesses. Across the street was the House of Seafood, or is a House of Seafood. And so I think most of us are familiar with this area. The property immediately to the west is already designated HC2. And as the staff observations stated, it is consistent with the surrounding use of the property. This property is consistent with the surrounding properties. It's consistent with the historical use of this property, and we would just simply ask that the zoning be changed to be consistent with this area.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor of this change in zoning? Anyone wish to speak against? I'll close the floor to the public and bring it back to the commissioners. Commissioner Willie.
Yeah, that's a compatible request. I move for approval.
Motion by Mr. Willie to approve. Commissioner Randolph.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Randolph. Please vote.
The motion to approve has passed.
Thank you. Next item is 2019-1478ZC. Existing zoning is A2. Proposed zoning is A3 Suburban District. It's 1.89 acres. Petitioner is Alan Paul Wright. Owner is Jeffrey Mays Johannesson. Owner is, that is the owner. Parcel located on the north side of Philip Smith Road, west of Louisiana 434, Lacombe, Ward 6, District 11. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with residential uses with varying degrees of density and site design. Excuse me. Staff feels that there is no compelling reason to recommend approval of the request, considering the site is surrounded by existing residential uses which conform to the A2 Suburban District designation. While there is higher density residential zoning to the east side of Highway 434, the site is surrounded by properties zoned A2 on the north, south, and west sides. Note that the objective of the request is to allow for the creation of 2 single-family residential parcels. Staff recommends that this request be denied.
Thank you. Alan Paul Wright, are you here? Please come up and state your name and address.
My name is Alan Paul Wright, 67111 Highway 434, and I'm here on behalf of Mr. Jeffrey Mays Johansson regarding this property. It is desired to build 2 single-family residences on this corner. The property at 1.89 acres, if 2 single-family residences were built on it and it was split in half, would be roughly 0.95 acres per residence, barely under the 1 acre requirement. And I've got some maps here, if you would care to give those to anybody who wants it. The property to the west that joins the Mr. Johansson's property to the west is a property that I own, and there's a single-family dwelling on it. To the east is Highway 434, and all the property to the east of Highway 434 is A3 zoning. The property to the south is Mrs. Chasson's property. It's a single-family dwelling, and it's a fairly large piece of property. The property to the north is an undeveloped field with a pretty substantial pine tree buffer between. So considering that the property with 2 houses on it would be, as I said, 0.95 acres each, I would ask that you reconsider and permit the change in zoning to allow for these 2 houses to be built.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in the audience that wish to speak in favor of this change? Anyone wish to speak against? I'll close it to the public, bring it back to the commissioners. Do I have any commissioners? Mr. Baggett, Commissioner Baggett.
If we grant this zoning request, then it would have to come back and be subdivided? I'm asking.
Right.
Correct, okay.
Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice to approve. Do I have a second? Commissioner Baggett. Second by Commissioner Baggett. Any further discussion? Please vote.
The motion to approve has passed.
Thank you. All right, the next item is item 7, 2019-1483-ZC. The existing zoning is A1A Suburban District. Proposed zoning is A2 with the manufactured housing overlay. It's 4.325 acres. Petitioner is Shandora Viron. Owner is Aline Munger. Property located on the north side of Davis Drive, east of Sanders Road and Downs Avenue, Ward 10, District 6. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with residential and agricultural uses. Staff doesn't have any objection to the request for the mobile home or manufactured housing overlay designation. However, staff does not see any compelling reason to recommend approval of the requested zoning change to A2 Suburban District, considering that the surrounding properties are zoned A1A Suburban District. So at this time, staff recommend approval of the manufactured housing overlay, however, does not recommend approval of the request to rezone to A2 Suburban.
Okay, thank you. We have a number of speaker cards. And let's see, yeah, it was Adam,
Acquista Pace.
pardon? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Shenandoah Byron, are you here?
How y'all doing tonight?
All right, how are you?
I'm doing great, and actually the land is in my name now.
Okay,
Yeah, and my mother and her mother, they own this land their whole life, and there's a mobile home. It was like 38 acres. It's split up now. I think 17, 12, and then mine is and my uncle's, and there's 2 mobile homes actually on all of that land, but it's all divided up now. And then at the beginning of, I think it's Davis Road, there's also a mobile home there, and it's either going to be a modular home or maybe a mobile home.
okay,
And if I may say, I think Prino's nursery, they own across the lake. He has like, I don't know, close, I don't know exactly how much, but it's hundreds of acres to the right. And then on the left side of the property is a big hunting camp, which is also a few hundred acres. And then on the back side is my aunt. She owns a bunch. So, I mean, and the road going in there is all family, so nothing else is going to be built back there for anyone to complain about my mobile home or modular home.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have
Adam Acquista Pace.
Adam.
This is against.
This, you're speaking against, right? Yes, sir. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak in favor? All right, come on up, Mr. Pace.
My name is Adam Acquista-Pace. I own 75570 Downs Avenue. I grew up out in this property. My dad has been out there for 46 years. I own 12 acres of the adjoining property. My dad owns 28, and my siblings and my brother, we own an additional 18 acres, so 58 acres out there. We are against the rezoning from A1A to A2 in the manufacturing housing overlay. So we're against the spot. We're against the spot zoning. So we have this property. We know that this will adversely affect our property. We've always been great neighbors. We are very concerned about what is being put out there. It's not kept up. It hasn't been kept up for a long time. But we've been great neighbors. We appreciate the restrictions and the zoning that's in place, and we want the zoning to remain the same. We're concerned about a trailer park being put out here. If you do a spot zoning in this area, what is to prevent somebody from asking for the rest of it to be zoning? And there's not a hunting camp in that area as residences.
Okay, thank you. The next card we have.
Gail Hewerstone.
I would like to speak now.
Okay.
My name is Bill Hurstow. I live at 25178 South Davis Road. We have been back on the property since '06. We have 8.5 acres. We built a nice, beautiful home back there. We go to the right-of-way that the property is being asked to rezone, and the property really hasn't been kept up. We have pictures of the trailer that's there at this time, and I know it's kind of deterred the price of my property, and I would hate to see 3 more trailers added into it. There's over a 1 acre pond there that it would be kind of pushing 3 mobile homes on it, so I would object to being changed. I do have the pictures of the trailer that is currently there that I would like for you to look at. The first picture is the trailer that is there on existing property, and we try to keep up right-of-way that leads to our property does go through their property, and Mr. Quistapace does own part of the right-of-way, and he has came in and helped grade it in our forest. I would like to add rocks to it and make it livable where we could get in and out of it with no problem. The property does come from the parish. They updated and blacktopped that road, which was great. And we do have to go through the right-of-way to reach our property. And my son-in-law and daughter live right next door. They own 8.5 acres. They have a beautiful home that they built on it. And like you say, Mr. Quistapace, his property leans to the back of it. And I know it would deter the value of our homes. And I would appreciate, given the concern, that it would not be changed.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody
Thank you.
else? We have another speaker again.
Yeah, we have some other speakers. Who's the next one?
Good evening, everybody. Lee Robin, 25180 S. Davis Road. Like my father-in-law said, yes, the property was part of a family parcel, 17 acres. That was the parcel that my father-in-law, that we split apart. The other 12-acre parcel was Mr. Quistapace. So yes, we are inhabiting the area, making it better. Like father-in-law said, it's not but an eyesore for us to go to and from our dwelling. I have 3 small young daughters that I've raised back there. All they know is that property as well. So I'm, bringing my family as well to raise, and it is a beautiful area. But I have had nothing but problems with the way that the property has been kept up, dealing with animals. It's on record. I had a daughter that got bit back there. Like my father-in-law said, I am the one who maintains the road. It's a court-mandated, maintenance on their part, but I utilize the road, so I feel like it's my justice, I guess you can say, to maintain it and whatnot. So I am against any changes. I just want to, continue to beautify our property. That's all I've got.
Thank you. We have someone else? We got another gentleman.
So we purchased 12 acres of their
State your name.
family's property just
State
recently.
your name and address.
Oh, Erica Quistapace, I'm sorry. And we purchased a little over 12 acres of their family's property recently. Just to make note that we took over 15 40-yard dumpsters worth of trash off the property. And then historically, there was no trailers when I was growing up as a kid on these properties. It was their grandparents' house, and then their great-grandmother's house. And that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak against? Yes, sir.
Steve Quistapace. I've been living back there 40-something years. Always got along with my neighbors. There was not historically mobile homes back there when I was there. There was only 2 homes back there, the grandmother's home, Miss Wager, and when I built, and then Mrs. Davis, the original family home, I paid a premium price for 14 acres about 2 years ago that adjoins the property. And I'm not against the existing mobile homes that's there. I don't have any problem with it. I mean, it was grandfathered in. It should be there. It's their home. But I don't want it to be an overlay or a higher density that you could go ahead and put 4 mobile homes, and then maybe other people want to put 4. My son Adam owns 12 acres. He could put 4 or 5 mobile homes coming down the road there. But we don't want mobile homes. We want single-family residences, and we'd like it to stay that way. We'd like the existing zoning to stay the same. I purchased this property knowing that no more mobile homes can come. Now we want to change it. I don't think it should be changed. I don't think there should be any more mobile homes than what's already there. And that's the way I feel it should stay like that. And it's a good community. and it should stay like that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak against? We're gonna go to rebuttal, and,
It's Mr. Shannon.
Mr. Byron,
How you doing?
this is,
I'm
you-
just
you've heard the
trying-
people that are talking against.
Yes, sir.
It's your opportunity to rebut that.
I'm just trying to move on my property that I just accumulated from my mother. When I move out there, I will have it cleaned up and everything. As far as the right-of-way, that blacktop road that goes down there, I think their land butts up to that. So in the future, I'm gonna try and get them to build their own right-of-way from their property, because it's a lot closer than going through all my land plus the Quistapay's land to get to their land when they can just come straight across. And the trailer was there before they purchased any of the land. There's also a trailer on one of the people that purchased the land, I think the Quistapay's. There was a trailer on that land that they purchased. And I'm trying to get an up-to-date modular home on my property, and when I move out there, I will clean the land up, and that's all I can say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
maybe,
Yes, ma'am.
maybe we need to clarify here. I can hear the owner stating that maybe he's changed, he would like to change his request because he's not referring to a manufactured home, but to a modular home. Is that correct?
Is that correct? That you're looking at a modular home and not a manufactured home, or?
Yeah.
So you no longer want to request a mobile home? You want to have a modular home or a manufactured home?
Hi, my name is Sherry. I'm his fiance, and we didn't make the final decision on if it's going to be a manufacturer or modular, but we plan on, initially we had spoke about getting a mobile home and then building our own house on the land. And we don't plan on putting any other trailers or property or homes on that land. It's for us to, start our own family, have our own property and home that we can pay towards instead of paying rent, so we can raise our own family.
It appears that maybe the opposition is mostly regarding the manufactured home overlay. I don't know if the opposition has voiced their opinion regarding the A2 Suburban. They did?
Okay. Well, let's ask the question, and those of you that are opposed to this, are you opposed to the manufactured housing overlay, or are you opposed to the zoning request going from A1 to A2?
I'm opposed to both.
Okay?
There is an existing mobile home on the property right now. I don't know if it's their intentions to remove that existing mobile home and build and put another manufactured mobile home, or put two, where we want to put two mobile homes.
Okay, all right.
I'm against going from A1 to A2, and I'm against any overlay.
Okay, and that's those, all of you that spoke against it are the same thing, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, all right.
I don't mind understanding, one existing property. I had understood they wanted to separate and make 4 mobile homes on it, and I totally object to that. They do have one mobile home there, and if they want to build a house on the property, I wouldn't have any objections to that if they then move the trailer off the property. That's my understanding of what they were first trying to do, is put 3 or 4 mobile homes, and I totally object to that.
No, this is just for one manufactured home on the 4.325 acres.
That's not the way it's presented.
Yeah, that's what we.
That's the way it's written.
We misunderstood.
The way it's presented is they want it rezoned
To
from
A2.
A1 to A2,
Right.
which goes from, lot size goes from 3 acres to 1 acre. Then you could put a mobile home on each 1 acre. It's the way it's presented here. I'm against
Okay, all right,
going from A1 to A2. They already have a mobile home there. I'm not asking anybody to move, do anything. That's not what I'm trying.
Okay.
I just don't want any more mobile homes. If they bought the property, they want to tear that mobile home, they want to build a house, tear the mobile home down, that's fine. It'll be okay. But
okay.
I don't know, what it's saying is, on here, is manufactured housing.
That's a
And
manufactured
the way
housing, a
it's
mobile home.
presented, and the way it's presented is you could put 4 of them.
You could, but each, well, it's 5.5 acres,
No, it's 4 point something.
4.35 acres. And you could do that, but, I
Well,
don't
there's no
think that's
buts
their
about it. They
intention.
could do it if it's changed.
Okay, all right. So y'all are opposed to
Yeah.
the A1A to the A2, so I mean, that,
I'm against that.
okay,
And they already have a mobile home there.
all right.
There's already one there. No
Okay.
one could stop someone from going ahead, doing away with the mobile home, and building a house.
Right, okay, thank you. All right, I'm gonna, close it to the, public now, bring it back to the commissioners. Commissioner Willie.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with staff and move for denial.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Willie to deny. Commissioner Richard. Commissioner Richard seconds. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
Why not? I have a question for the petitioners. Come to the podium for me, please. So is it your intent to put one mobile home on the property?
Yes, sir.
Only.
Just for our own families.
Right,
dwell.
but, and you want to leave the one that's currently there?
That
My
one is
sister
his
lives in
sister's.
there.
Okay. So you want to put 2 on the 1 4 point, whatever it is, 4.325 acre parcel. And then in the future, build a home and remove the mobile home that you would put there. Is that the
Right,
plan? Okay.
correct.
I just want to
That
understand.
or put a modular home on it.
Okay, I just had that question for you. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have any further comments from the commissioners? Please vote. We have a motion and a second to deny.
Mr. Jones,
Who you missing?
Mr. Jones. Okay, now. 1, 2, 6 to deny, 2 against.
Yeah, it passes to
The
deny.
motion to deny is passed.
Right. Failed. It passed.
To deny, yes.
Yeah. All right. Item H, 2019-1484-ZC, existing zoning is A2 Suburban District, proposed zoning is A2 Suburban District, and manufactured housing overlay. It's .61 acres. Yes,
I'm sorry. Let's go outside. Thank you, I'm sorry.
it's .61 acres. The petitioner is Jerome Mitchell Harris. The owner is Jerome Mitchell Harris, parcel located on the east side of Josephine Street, south of Mill Road, north of Ohio Road, being Lot 7 Covington, Ward 3, District 2. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with residential uses, including manufactured homes. Staff doesn't have any objection to the request and would like to recommend approval.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Harris? Please come forward and state your name and address, please. And that's Ms. Harris.
Good evening, good night, or whatever. My name is Stephanie Ciparan. I live at 21037 Ohio Road, Abita Spring. I'm standing in for Jerome. He had to work, so he drive trucks, so he had, he drive for a FedEx, so he couldn't be here. So he just said that he would go along with the recommendation of this committee. And he will be my neighbor and he's a longtime friend, and so
Okay, thank you. Well, we don't have anyone, I don't think, Carlos, I don't think you want to speak, do you? How about you, Bill? All right, so at this point in time, I'm going to bring it back to the commissioners. Commissioner Willie.
Yes, move for approval.
Motion by Mr. Willie to approve. Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further discussion? Please vote.
The motion to approve is passed.
Thank you. All right, old business, we have none. New business, we have none. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion by somebody and second by somebody. There you go. Thank you.